All right, folks. This is not Archie Luxury live on the Archie Luxury live stream channel. We're going to be doing Watch Talk here. I'm your host, Pan. We're going to be going through hyped pieces and market values. And yeah, no, I just wanted to do a stream for the European hours. I know a lot of our friends in UK, Ireland, and the European mainland is probably, evening for you guys. You guys may have finished dinner, having a drink maybe. Thought I'd talk some watches with everybody. I think it was a popular segment a few days ago. So we're going to let a few people roll in. I'll say hello to some folks. Alan French Fry, hello. Not I'm not Archie Luxury, but saying hi. We got Saad here. Welcome, Saad. How you doing?
Hello, Tanzil. How are you doing, bro?
I am fantastic. We've got Mr. Klausto saying first. Yeah, we're just gonna do some watch talk, I guess, before the big stream tonight, which is always full of drama and watch talk and all that good stuff with Archie Luxury. So, how's everything been with you, Saad?
So, before talking about watches, tell us about your Lamborghini. How is it doing? And new mods?
The Lamborghini's doing good. It's unfortunately sleeping right now. It's winter time here in Canada, so not much I can do with the car. Mods next year. So I have lowering springs ready for the car already that are in my garage. Gonna order a new set of HRE wheels, and then I actually might look at doing a VF Engineering supercharger. So a bit of fun stuff. We got
So, Tanzil, in winters, is it a little bit difficult to warm up the vehicle, or like older Lamborghinis where you used to have those buzzer sounds and stuff?
yeah. So I don't really warm it up in the winter. I have the car on a battery tender. So I don't know if you saw the video where I showed the cars. It was on one of Archie's streams. I might be able to show it one of the streams later today or whatnot. But basically the battery tender just plugs into the battery and just keeps it charged throughout the winter, so I don't need to start it.
And how different it is from a normal vehicle, maintenance wise and driving it, etc.
I mean, price of the maintenance is quite expensive. I had when I bought the car, it came with a maintenance package, so 3 years of maintenance is paid up front already as part of the package. So I don't really have to pay for maintenance right now until the warranty is up on the car. But um, if you were to pay for maintenance, it would probably be sitting around the 2,000 Canadian dollar mark, I would say, for the usual maintenance, and maybe three and a half on a major. And we're talking like oil change, spark
Oh,
plugs, filters, like and that's not really too far off from a Porsche. So yeah, they're not. I mean, it's expensive. It's not cheap. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like you would. It's way out of the ballpark from Porsche.
and these does these cars have little bit sharing of parts with some other vehicles, like we have with you know Jaguar, Range Rover. They share some parts engine wise. Do you have these kind of things
I
with the
will answer that
Lamborghini?
question, Saad, right after the intro. Let's run the intro. We got about 27
Sure.
people watching. Let's run the intro, then we'll get into it. Now, Saad, hopefully it's a better intro than the 60s softcore porn that he does every single day.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Want to say hi to a few people here. We got Vintinier, my former partner in crime in these live streams. Hope he's doing well. It's Jin. We got P. Lucas. We got Stefan. We got Aaron Fletcher. We got America, who very graciously donated a number of super chats yesterday on the dungeon. Great to see you here. Um, we got Adrianos, Work Boot. A lot of folks joining us here, Saad. So your question was, does the Lamborghini share parts with other cars? So the Huracan, the car I have,
Yeah.
does share the engine with the R8, so it's the V10 R8 that Audi builds. But I'll tell you a story. So I had a Huracan before this one, an LP580-2, and that LP580, I had a problem when I was lowering the car where the mechanic actually stripped the wire for the electronic dampeners. And, I thought, hey, no big deal, shares parts with an R8, we can go easily get parts. The problem was that the suspension on the Huracan is actually different than the R8. And Audi does not allow you to rebuild the shock. They don't sell just parts for the shock. You have to buy the shock itself. So the a job that would probably the guy would have made $900 in lowering the car ended up costing almost $4,000 because he fucked up the shock. So
Oh, no. Okay.
yeah, so yeah, they do, and they don't share parts. We have a watch question here from Adrianos. Ken, do you own an Omega? I don't own one anymore. Oh no, I do actually. I have a Speedmaster 3861, so I do own an Omega. I was thinking of my Seamaster SMP 300, which I sold to a friend of mine. I've owned a lot of Speedmasters in my time. I had the 1861 a couple of times. I had the 3861 Hesalite, which I bought about a year ago maybe. I sold it and then I just bought it back. Don't really wear it that much, to be honest with you. I wear more of my moon swatches, ironically enough, but I do own an Omega 3861 Hesalite Speedmaster. Man on the Viking moon. Today, Todd, we're going to go through some watch talk. I know you have some car questions. We can handle the car questions.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Tan, I wanted, I have noticed that you have extreme love for Patek Philippe watches.
Hmm.
So it was, one of my agenda to interview you a little bit or ask you a few questions about how did it started, liking this brand, and which are your favorite models, and even if you can go to the website and you can show us buyer's guide, which one to get, and how, if a person who wants to get into Patek Philippe, which models are the ones to get,
Yeah,
something
no,
like
it's a
that.
great question. It's a great question. And I think AXK, we're going to get into what's the best entry level everyday Paddock in a second. As part of this long, long question that Todd's given me, this is the real question. So the first question was what got me into Patek Philippe. So back in 2015, I used to live in Europe. I used to live in Ireland, and it was my wife and I's first year anniversary, and we ended up going to Switzerland for our anniversary. And we picked Geneva. My wife and I both speak French, so we figured going to the French-speaking part of Switzerland would be better for us. We could get around a little bit easier speaking French. And so when I landed in Geneva, all you see in Geneva is Rolex Patek, Rolex Patek, Rolex Patek, right? And at the time, I owned a Datejust 2, Blue Romans fluted. I owned a Speedmaster, and I owned a AP Royal Oak 15300. You guys might have heard me talking about that on the channel. I owned a white dial AP Royal Oak 15300, and I wore my AP Royal Oak actually when I went to Switzerland, but no AP around, right? It was AP is not from Geneva. They're in Le Brassus, which is in the Vallée de Joux, different area than Geneva, not far, but a different area. Anyway, so as I'm walking around Switzerland and in Geneva, I'm like, hey, there's like, where's AP here? Like, what's going on? And not planned, out of nowhere, we were just walking around Geneva. I saw signs for the Patek Philippe Museum. So I told my wife, and my wife knows I'm a big watch enthusiast. I'm like, hey, let's go check it out, and ended up spending a number of hours in the Patek Philippe Museum, kind of learning. And when you go to the Patek Philippe Museum, it's not just Pateks that are there. It's a whole bunch of things. So I'm gonna get the super chat from America. Thank you so much, very generous super chat. $20. Unfortunately, America, I don't have the music the bear does to play this. I'll ask them to play it on the main show. $20 from America, 5935. Ken the man, I'm loving these streams. America, your super chat from last night really inspired me to take some time to spend some time talking watches. Sod's graciously chosen to join me today. So we will be going through watches. We're going to be talking a whole bunch of topics, whatever the chat wants to talk about. I have some topics on hype pieces that we can talk about. So Sod, I was in the Patek Museum, and in that museum, it's not just a history of Patek. There's a lot of other watches that are there, and I really spent time learning about them. Spent time seeing a lot of rare models like the Reverso that was made by Jaeger LeCoultre, but the Patek had, they actually have a Patek version of it, because I think Jaeger LeCoultre at the time was trying to sell the model of the Reverso, the design, to certain brands, and Patek commissioned a few of them, not many that exist, and it was there. So, just I really found a love for those watches, the art. I really learned a lot about the art that went behind, making high end, high horology pieces. And look, I was wearing a high horology piece on my wrist, arguably, with the Royal Oak, but obviously a sports watch type of guy prior to that. And then when I looked and I did a bit more digging and a bit more educating of myself on Patek, I really got interested. So that's the start point, Saad. From
Yeah.
there, I do like everybody did here. We're all going and we're all searching on the internet for the watches that we love. I stumble upon the fact that the same guy I watched of YouTube for a number of years, ArchieLuxury, had a significant amount of Patek. I had really watched a lot of his Rolex stuff. I'd watched his Louis Vuitton stuff. I didn't really, I guess I just never really caught on the Patek piece with him. But I started, digging through his archives of Patek, and that's when, I started learning a lot more about Patek. Super chat for Mr. Zoso, $2. I'll say to you, Mr. Zoso, hey. Thanks, Sam, for letting Archie have it. You know why? Yeah, I've been giving Archie a bit of a hard time with a bunch of the drama, but so yeah. So then I go through Archie's archives because I'm like, hey, this guy talks a lot about watches. Let's see if he talks about Patek. I start searching through and I find obviously a huge wealth of information about the 5107. He did videos on his 5035 that he had, which is the annual calendar. He did videos on the 3940, which is the perpetual calendar, et cetera, et cetera. So, from there, I kind of look at, hey, what's my style of Patek? And you know what? We're already on the wrong website here. Let's go to Patek's website. And,
Yeah.
Archie, as you're getting influenced like all of us did when we first started, Archie was a big fan of the Calatrava line. And this line, arguably today, it's a little thin. It's missing, I think, the reference 96, which is the original Calatrava that saved Patek Philippe back in the early 20th century. And so this is where I started with Patek. Was I started here, and I looked at the Calatrava. I didn't go to the Nautilus. There is a story about me in the Nautilus in a few minutes that I'll go through, but I started at the Calatrava, and this is the modern iteration. I'll probably pull up. Let's put the rose gold one. Archie's never owned a rose gold one. This is the modern iteration of Archie's 5107. This is the 5227, which is an automatic three-hander with date. Calatrava. Archie owned the 5107. From the 5107, it became the 5127, and then from the 5127, it became the 5227. So, interestingly enough, this wasn't, if I think about it, wasn't the first Patek I bought. The first Patek I bought, and this is now so I started in 2015. We're at the Patek Museum. I moved back to North America in 2016, and I actually had asked the Patek AD over in the city I lived in to put me on the list for a Nautilus, because again, I'm doing a lot of searching online. Everyone's saying, hey, you might want to start with a Nautilus. Archie's influencing me on the Calatrava. I'm basically trying to get what I could get. I come back to Canada and I'm able to purchase a 5711 blue dial Nautilus, which I don't need to pull up because I think everyone's familiar with it. I had the choice of buying the Aquanaut at the time too. And you know what? I just never, when you think Aquanaut, and it's funny because if you think about it in this day and age, it's kind of the poor man's Nautilus. Nobody says that anymore, but they definitely did back in 2016, the poor man's Nautilus. So I was like, I'll spend the extra money, get the watch that I think is a bit better. So I ended up buying a 5711 blue dial Nautilus. So at the time now I have a Royal Oak 15300. I have Speedmaster. I have an AP 5711 blue dial Patek, and I have the Datejust too. But here's the thing, Saad, is I always, when I owned the Royal Oak and the Nautilus at the same time, I always felt the Royal Oak was a better watch for me, at least.
I see.
Maybe movement finishing wasn't as nice on the Nautilus as it was. On the Royal Oak as it was on the Nautilus. But rarely do I take off my watch and I sit there and I put it under a loop, and then I go and I actually do an inspection of the movement. I do that, but not very often. But every day I look at the watch on my wrist. I can see the bracelet, I can see the case, and that's really where the Royal Oak really shines. Like it is probably, arguably, in my opinion, the absolute best bracelet ever made. And I know people are going to contest that in the chat probably, but it takes something like 9 to 11 hours to finish, and it's just an absolutely beautiful bracelet. Plus the case design to me is a bit more appealing than the Nautilus. So I end up selling the Nautilus. I did make some money on it, obviously not crazy money. If you kind of talk about Archie's robbery, I think I didn't lose as much, but definitely close to some of it in not holding on to the Nautilus. But you know what? This is where ArchieLuxury comes in, right? Like, and really the question, Saad, was like, what got you into it? What do you love about it? You know, to me, Patek isn't the Nautilus. Patek isn't sports watches. Patek is Calatrava. Patek is complications. So my next piece that I get into is I purchased the Patek Philippe 5127, which is the predecessor to this watch I have on the screen, which is basically the same thing, three-hander with the date in rose gold, and beautiful piece. Absolutely loved it. Then I was craving to kind of go at the next level here. We got America 5935 super chat $2. I agree 100%. Read the Royal Oak versus the Nautilus. I've owned both. Yeah, look, it's especially if you own the Nautilus from the era I had it, which was 2016. The clasp was flimsy. I didn't like. Look, it was a great watch. It did, and you were a rock star back in 2016 when you walk into a watch event wearing that watch. Everybody wants to see it. They just don't see it every day. But arguably, back to me, that's not what it's about. It's a lot of it. It's about is about what you really love about the watch. And to me, the Nautilus wasn't the big thing. We got $2 from my friend Jin. The 5127 is also quite drop resistant. I'll tell you this story, Saad. Jin and I, this probably was around 2017 or 2018. I think it might have been 2018. It was the year that the Pepsi was released. And I got invited by Ronnie Paul to go to the Rolex release event for the Pepsi. And Jin was living in Toronto at the time. And Jin was meeting me before I went to the event, and then we were going to have dinner afterwards. So Jin and I decided to meet up and go to the Richard Mille boutique. And we go into the boutique, and I had my Patek on, my 5127. And so, they knew that I wasn't I wasn't just some guy who was just going to walk in off the street, that I, probably could afford or potentially could afford some of those watches that they had in there. So they stayed open late for us. And I don't remember what I was looking at, whether it was a Rafael Nadal or whatever piece I was. And they kind of left Jin and I to just inspect the piece. And Jin actually, I guess he was holding my 5127 and dropped it from not too far up, but dropped it on the rubber table. And I could see the manager of the Richard Mille shop just run across the corner to ensure that we didn't drop a $200,000 watch. Jin, once he dropped it, immediately turned to me and said, "I will pay for the service." And I'm sitting there like, hey, we're in this shop. We can't act like a $20,000 watch is really going to phase us. So I said, hey man, don't worry about
But
it.
did you had a slight heart attack when this happened?
You know what? Like,
A minor one.
not even a minor one, to be honest with you. Like, I was pretty cool at that point. It wasn't, to me, these aren't, yes, do I love watches? Do I love my watches? Absolutely. It's not something that can't be fixed, or it's not something that, is the end of the world. And Jin is a good friend of mine. And he's, immediately was like, hey, I'll pay for the service, like whatever it is. I'm really like, he was very apologetic for it. So look, it wasn't the end of the world. We let it slide. The watch was actually okay, no issues. It didn't really take a big knock. But also, to me, and the gold was fine. And, that also showed that these aren't as made of marshmallow as Archie likes to portray
Yeah.
that they are, I guess.
Archie once said that on one of the models, the lugs are very delicate and things like that.
So we got $10 Canadian from our good friend, the General of Generals, because we do have General Saad here. We'll say this the 5-star General. Bear Clooney watches $10. Great friend of the show, the right-hand man of ArchieLuxury. Brooklyn Grifter sitting at some low-end bar with Red Plumber, drinking and reviewing Bartender's Boulevard. Top content, boys. Top content. Here we have two classy, educated gentlemen, Saad and Tan. Thank you, Bear. Appreciate the
Thank
kind
you,
words.
Bear. Thank you so much.
So from the 5127, So this is a basic Calatrava. And I'm going to look at modern references
Yeah.
because I don't really need to show the older ones that I had. But I really, to me, again, from what I learned at the Patek Museum, was Patek itself is known for complications. That's really what the
Okay.
house is known for, right? Not the Nautilus. The Calatrava is a staple because the cross, the symbol you see here that I'm highlighting on the screen,
Yeah.
this cross is called the Calatrava cross. So Calatrava to Patek is like the date just to Rolex, right? When you see a Rolex advertisement, it's always the fluted bezel. It's not the Submariner. It's always the fluted bezel. It's always the date just,
Yeah.
or the day date. So complications. So my next piece was after the 5127 was an annual calendar, a complicated piece. And this is where I was heavily influenced by ArchieLuxury, who himself owned the 5035 annual calendar. And I'm going to show a modern iteration. They don't make the 5146 anymore, I don't believe. Um, so I can't really find a true. I can show the 5146 in a bit, which is the modern version of the 5035. But I'll just show you the an annual calendar. This is the 5396 annual calendar. Patek Philippe invented it. So a big piece of why I wanted the annual calendar was the fact that the Patek invented um, the complication itself, the annual calendar complication. I thought that was very special to me. Was that this was a complication invented by the brand, and I didn't really understand how usable it was at the time. Like, we all have dates on our watches, and is it really the end of the day? Is it really the end of the world if, like, the date's not right or whatever? But when I had the annual calendar, it was amazing because you literally just got to change the date once, which is changing it from the change from February to March.
March.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so, to me, this was super special. I had a white gold slate gray dial. It had Italian discs. So Archie used to kind of, bitch at me about the fact that it was in Italian. I said to him, well, it's really not that hard to learn the months, in Italian, or it's not that hard to
Yeah.
learn, a bit of Italian for yourself. But yeah, no, I mean, I went straight to the 5035, and I'll show the 5035 here, just so that you can kind of get a sense of the piece that I did have at the time. I'll show a nice salmon dial one here, actually, 5035. So you can see here, it's the days of the week, the month of the year, and then at the bottom it's a 24-hour day-night indicator. Okay, so the importance of that is, there's certain times of the day that you don't want to set the watch because it can damage the movement. And that's where you'll know it's generally at night. You don't want to set the watch. So, here you'll know where the danger zone is. And interestingly enough, Archie has a video that he did on when to change the date, when to change, or when to set the annual calendar and how to do it. Archie actually says don't use the metal piece that is included with like the little pen to set it. He
Yeah.
says use like a toothpick
Toothpick.
or a
Yeah.
piece of wood, yeah, to set it because it won't scratch the gold. Um, but this was the original annual calendar that was created by Patek Philippe, um, and to me this was, and look, it was a tad small. This is also a 37 millimeter, but this was meant to fit as a as a 36. And the reason for that was that at the time when it was created, Thierry Stern, who's the current CEO of Patek, wasn't in charge. It was his father, Philippe Stern. And Philippe Stern, I believe it was Philippe Stern at the time. I don't think it was Thierry at the time. Um, Wanted the watch, to really be traditional, to be like a 36. So the intent of this watch was actually to fit like a 36, but it was a 37 millimeter watch. Does fit a lot smaller than, for example, the 5196 that Archie talks about, the one that I have, and I'll pull it up here, 5196G, which is white gold, 5196. This watch actually fits more like a 38. The lug to lug is a bit longer. And so, when we talk about Patek, it's everybody kind of knows these days about lug to lug and what's important in that for the size of the piece. So I don't always look at just the case dimensions of 36 or 37 or 38 millimeters. It's really how are the lugs going to fit as well. So um, though that's kind of my journey, with Patek between Calatravas and Nautilus and complications and whatnot. And kind of today, going back to what I'd be looking for today. And there was a question, I think maybe I'll address it back. It was, what's a good entry level Patek Philippe? Um, Look, I think that's gonna depend on your personal taste as well. I kind of shared my story where my first Patek, I'm not gonna lie, was a Nautilus, right? Probably just like everybody else out here is saying, well, you should get a Nautilus, you should get this, you should get that, you should get an Aquanaut or whatever. Um, I think that if you're starting into Patek, you probably, I would say, like, a good reference is this watch is the manual wind 5196. I'm always going to say it. The 5196 is an excellent entry piece. It's a manual wind piece. This is on the 215 movement. It is an older movement. It is smaller, a lot smaller than the case, so they don't show the movement in the case back. They are going to be updating it into this piece, which is the 6119. This is the modern version of the 5119 or the 3919. And you can see, obviously, they made the movement to fit the case. The reason why I wouldn't say this should necessarily be your first Patek, and I'll tell you why, is in DZ, it's not the same, for example, like, as as the 215 movement, which probably has a huge spacer in it. The reason why I would say this is probably not the best starter Patek for people is the hobnail bezel, the Clou de Paris bezel is like, when Thierry Stern described the 5119, and I'll show you the 5119 here. When he described this watch when it first came out, which is the predecessor to that piece, let me pull it up. The 5119. Fuck, I need to get a good photo here. So this was all right. This is the predecessor to the 6919, and when he was asked about this watch, he said that this isn't a piece for a young man. When he was building, when Thierry Stern was building and designing the modern 5227, this piece here, the 5227, he believed that this was a modern interpretation of a dress watch that a younger individual would wear. He felt that the 5119 was the true grandpa watch, was a watch that somebody who's more elderly in life would probably appreciate, because it probably is similar to a time when those watches may have been more common, and the style is something that someone who may be older may appreciate. When Thierry Stern built this watch, he wanted to build it with a young collector in mind. So you can see sculpted lugs, so they call it scallop lugs over here. Pretty clean dial, and if I can actually get this to scroll, I don't know if it's going to scroll. It has the Hunter's case back. Let me see if I can go through it here. So here, this case back here actually opens and is called the Hunter's case back, and that actually is pretty cool, because you get solid gold on the Hunter's case back, and you can open it up and actually see the movement. So Thierry Stern felt that this was the modern Patek for a younger individual. So, if you're starting, this may be probably a safer bet for you than the 6119. I believe that if you're looking to start, I would probably skip the 6119. It can definitely feel a little old manish with the Clou de Paris. Some people don't. Some people will disagree with me, and they love the hobnail bezel. So hey, not gonna knock that if that's your preference. That's a great starter piece. If we're gonna go into starter, and look, I'm gonna kind of talk about all budgets. That's if you're in an entry level budget with Patek. We can go into entry level complications as well. So your big entry level complications are your annual calendar, and this is where it's really going to be what matters to you, what's important to you. Officer's case back, yeah, Hunter case back, officer's case back. I'll read some of his comments. I love the 5196R, but I believe that you utilize the spacer for the movement. Yeah, it is definitely has a spacer in the movement. It is a very small movement for the watch. Jin says 6119 is a beautiful combination of tradition and modernity. So, for Jin, maybe that is a piece that appeals to him, right? Like, it's going to be your personal taste. I think that entry level dress watch is your Calatrava. But again, we're going to talk about all budgets. Let's say you have more money and you're like, you know what, Tan, I really want to get into the complications. I'm here for the complications. That's why I'm looking at Patek. And we're going to go into that. So Complications, we got a couple of entry-level complications. They created this new one, which you guys all know is a big favorite of mine. I've been trying to buy this. Unfortunately, even today I tried, and it's just been difficult. This is the weekly calendar. It's a 40 millimeter piece in steel. I do find this is a bit small for this case. You know, I don't know if you saw the case back here, Saad, but it's a little
Oh
small.
yeah.
It's a
Yes.
little small. It kind of bothers me, but hey, I'll let it go because I love this. You know, the script that's kind of handwritten on the dial. But beautiful piece, weekly calendar, very cool. Um, from their entry level complications, you have the annual calendar, which, like I showed earlier, the 5396. Another iteration of the annual calendar is the 5205. This is a favorite of JJ's. I'm going to actually drop the link if anyone's actually around that wants to join. Sorry, I didn't do that as well. So I'll just drop the link if JJ's around or Zoso wants to join as well. Link's been dropped. The 5205, this is a favorite of JJ's. I think he owned this watch. It's a different way of seeing the annual calendar. You see the day, the day of the week, the date, and then the month. You got a moon phase as well, 24-hour indicator. Obviously, the day-night piece being important, and just a different way of seeing the annual calendar. But again, we're going to talk about the complication because your personal preference of the piece is going to be whatever style. I actually prefer this style of display of the annual calendar. It actually goes back to an old perpetual calendar display the Patek had. But hey, that's your personal choice. From there, we'll get into world times. I don't think they actually have a world time that's current. Let's have a look. They do.
This one, the green one.
It's the expensive one. So the 5230 is the 5230 I think is being updated. But the 5230, this is a platinum model. Beautiful blue dial using this is the old movement that was an Archie's watch, and it's micro rotor, which everyone knows is the rooted rotor, and this is another way of looking at getting into complications. Is do you want the world time complication versus the annual calendar complication? And I think that goes to your life stuff. The 240 movement, yes, Jen's right. The 240. I was getting stumped here with the 215 and his old 315 movement, but the 240 movement with micro rotor is the movement. And yeah, I think it's just going to be your lifestyle, right? Like, do you prefer, a travel watch where you can have the world timer? Do you have a need for that complication versus an annual calendar, which is probably your daily office watch? You're wearing it almost every day, and you care about knowing the day and the date and just having a beautiful watch on your wrist, right? This is your other complication you can get. Is the world time, and obviously, like Saad said, you have the Cloisonné dial version. So if you're a big baller, you can get this one. But I think you have to be a big baller to get all of these. This is an interesting one. I don't know why this is not really considered a grand complication, but it's a world time flyback chronograph. Beautiful dial, beautiful movement. You got Guilloche on the dial. Like it's just, yeah, it's stunning. Like this, honestly, Saad is definitely one of my favorites here in the complications. Pretty surprised it's not considered a grand complication, but we'll see grand complications here in a second for the next budget. So another complication that's in the complications piece is the and you have the
Perpetual.
travel times. Well, perpetual is a grand complication, so we'll get into the grand
Okay.
complications in a second. Is the actual chronograph. So the chronograph is not considered a grand complication in Patek. It's considered a complication. So your three kind of big complications are the annual calendar, the world time, and the chronograph are the three big ones. They seem to be updating the 5170. This is not, is this a 5170? I don't think this is considered a 5172 is what this is, yeah. So it's an offshoot
Is
of the
this also a
5170.
flyback?
I don't think it's a flyback. I think this is just a standard chronograph. Yeah, it doesn't say flyback on it. It just says, yeah, redesigned chronograph, classic architecture, column wheel, horizontal clutch, manual wind. So not a flyback, just a standard chronograph. The 5170, I'll show you guys. My favorite 5170 is the 5170G that has the Breguet numerals on it. Beautiful, beautiful piece. This is in white gold, black dial. It's obviously discontinued now, but this is to me probably, if you like chronographs, like this is going to be, oh shit, I'm not showing the screen. Here we go. This to me would be the chronograph to get in modern Patek. Um, I think this is a 39 millimeter watch. So,
Is this
so those,
platinum?
that's white gold. The white was white
Okay.
gold. Yeah, the one I'm showing here is platinum. Um, and yeah, it seems like they're sorry. This one I was showing was white gold, not platinum. The world time I showed was platinum. So they are, they are revamping, I think, a lot of their lineup. I think that they're revamping some of the world times, revamping their chronographs. But your big three complications, if you're getting into, so kind of think of Patek as three tiers, right? Like, kind of got your basic tier, and that could be just your basic pieces. Could be a basic Nautilus, Aquanaut, Calatrava, three-hander with a date. Then you kind of get into complications. If you're in the Nautilus, you got the 5712, which has some complications on it. You have the true complications pieces here that have chronograph, annual calendar, world time. That's kind of the second level of Patek. And then now we're going to go into the third level. So again, if you're a big baller, what's going to be your entry? So the question was, what's your best entry level piece, right? Again, depending on your budget, like I said, if you're at kind of the lower end, I would go with a manual one Calatrava. I'd go with a standard Calatrava with date if you want automatic. If you're looking for kind of that mid-tier budget, it's really take your pick of the complication that's most important to you. I don't really give a shit about chronographs. Um, World time, I like the Pepsi GMT. I don't really need the world time, so I'd go with an annual calendar myself, just for my personal needs. So here's your third tier, Saad. Third tier now is grand complications. So you can see Patek separates. If you see on the website here, they separate. What's happening here? Collection. They separate, by model line, Calatrava, Nautilus, Aquanaut, and some other ones here that we're not really going to get into. Complications and grand complications. So I kind of look at this as all the lower shit than the complications, the grand complications. They do probably put the grand complications into the Nautilus lineup because people are probably just searching for that. But if we're looking at dress watch grand complications, here's where you get into perpetual calendar. So the 5327 is the perpetual calendar. This is the modern iteration, I believe, of the 3940, which became the 5140. And I believe the 5327 is now the modern version of the perpetual calendar. Beautiful blue dial. This is in white gold. Honestly, I don't know. I've been talking a lot. Stop me. What do you think of this perpetual calendar? I'm going to stop talking
No,
now.
no, these are much beautiful than the ones we have seen. So I personally like this one more than the previous one.
Sandra says 5172 is beautiful, just a little too big for my taste. Yeah. I can pull up a 5172 if you want here. Um, I had it up actually, so I don't have to go back into it. But that was the chronograph. I think this is a beautiful piece myself. This is probably one that I'd be interested in getting. It's definitely quite pricey. So perpetual calendar is kind of your start point. And you have obviously there's Patek makes a lot of complications. They make tourbillons, they make minute repeaters, they make sonneries, they make a lot of grand complications. I think if we're just staying basic today and not going too far down the rabbit hole, you're looking at perpetual calendar and really the piece that they're known for. So Patek Philippe is known for inventing the annual calendar wristwatch, but they're also known for inventing the perpetual calendar chronograph. So I'm going to find us a perpetual calendar chronograph. I know the fella's going to hate me because I didn't pull up his one, which is a salmon dial, but this is a 5270 P, which is in platinum, perpetual calendar, beautiful green dial. Saad, what do you think of this 5270
Very, very
P?
beautiful. Yeah, very beautiful.
Yeah, I think that I think that the dial is just stunning in the green sunburst. It looks sunburst to me at least. Type of a dial. Like I know that there is a punter out there named George Varhees. He owns this watch. Um, and to me, amazing. Congrats to him. I think this is something that is probably, when you think about grails to a guy like me, this would probably be that. It's the really highest level of Patek. It's the grand complication. I've really been pushing Archie to kind of, he's owned the complications like I have. He's owned the Calatravas like I have. He hasn't gone into the Nautilus. I don't think he ever will, given just how pricey it is these days. But I keep kind of nudging him towards the grand complications because he's never really owned the perpetual calendar. He's never really owned anything of that highest stature, right? So So, do you think you could daily wear a 5224G? So, I'll answer this question for you, America, and I'll pull up a 5224G, which is a travel time Calatrava complication. Let's see if I can find one here. Yeah, here we go. You know, I don't really think there's a problem. The only time I've ever come across real problem on the gold America was on the 5196, just because it's such a thin watch, and it's really the only piece I've ever kind of banged into something that I'd be worried about a ding happening on the actual piece. Um, on the 5127, the 5035, the way the bezels were shaped, which are a bit similar to this one, um, I never really had a problem wearing it on a daily basis. This strap is obviously, I think that it's probably something that's gonna be a lot more casual for you to wear versus an alligator strap that comes with some of these other pieces. Um, it may be big for some folks. They may not want to wear this on a daily basis, but I can't see this not being something you could wear every day. I know that kind of goes against the grain, but this is probably a watch that Patek has meant to not be a special occasion watch. Like I can't see you wearing this to you know your wedding as your wedding watch, right? This is probably meant for more use than your standard 5196, which is probably something you wear to dinner or you wear to a special occasion. I think this watch would definitely be a piece that you would want to wear. They do make I think David SW had I don't know if it's not this exact watch, but he has the New York edition version of a pilot like this, that and I'll pull that up here, in steel, which would probably be even more. It's the 5522 in steel, um, which is the New York limited edition. Not actually a bad price. Like this is your AP Royal Oak money. This is probably a 5212 type of money for a limited edition. I think there's only it's 600 pieces were made, unworn, 2017. Um, Beautiful piece in steel. I think that with this piece, um, you could wear it. The only like downside, like I mentioned earlier, was maybe case size at 42 millimeters. Like, I don't think a 42 millimeter watch is meant to be your special watch. So, um, I think that, yeah, you could absolutely probably wear that 5224G on a daily basis. How's it going, Aiden? Rather wear Rolex than a pilot. Um, so yeah, this is kind of the modern stuff. So I'll kind of go a bit more into the perpetual count of the grand complications as we go through here, give you guys a bit of a look. So we talked about perpetual calendar, and we have like retrogrades here as well. This is a perpetual calendar with retrograde date hand, which means the date's going to go up and it's going to come back down. And again, right, this is engraved. It's artwork basically on a watch. Probably not something you'd wear every day. Definitely an art piece, but yeah, like we can kind of go through the catalog and see what is your cup of tea. This is where, Saad, if you're looking at split second chronographs, as we were discussing earlier, so the chronograph is not considered a grand complication, but the split second chronograph is a grand complication. So would you be going for this one, Saad, or would you be going for the 5172 that I showed earlier?
Um, I think uh, I think this one, but let's see if we have more choices.
Yeah, let's go. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a huge
But
chronograph
as
guy
you
myself.
said, Tan, the one important thing that you mentioned is that Patek Philippe is all about complications. The more complications, I think, the more attractive the watch becomes in this brand.
Hey, Sean, how's it going? Um, yeah, absolutely right. Like I think the more complications, and this is where I talked to Professor last time on the stream on Monday, was around opportunity cost. And an opportunity cost is when a Nautilus goes to 100, 150K. I'm not going to spend 100 or 150K on a Nautilus. I've owned one at 26. It's to me arguably a $30,000 watch. It's not a $100,000 watch. I would be looking at a grand complication if I'm going to spend that kind of money, because I want to really invest into the brand. And when I mean invest, not invest monetarily, but invest, myself, in getting a piece that I feel is really where the brand shines, and that's in the complications. Vintinier Jin says 499. GJ said a Nautilus feels agricultural compared to a Patek perpetual calendar. Yeah, so GJ is a friend of ours. He used to live in Singapore. Archie's met him a few times, and the last I knew, and I don't know too much of his collection so far. Jin is actually a lot closer than I am with him in terms of keeping up. But I know they owned a 3940 perpetual calendar. So it seems like he may have gotten a newer perpetual. I think he bought the 5327 perpetual calendar. We got the professor here. How you doing, professor?
Hey
Hello,
guys,
We may be
Professor.
we may be talking about topics that you may not like today. We're talking about Patek Philippe. We're talking about I'm going to be going through hyped Rolex prices and hyped piece prices. So we'll get your take, professor, because I know that economics may be an interesting topic for you as well. So um, so professor, we're just going out rounding through some of the grand complications in Patek Philippe. We kind of looked at split second chronographs. Saad, I know you and I like
Oh
jewels,
yeah,
gaudy
now you're
jewels.
talking.
So this is a perpetual chronograph with rubies. Just very gaudy, but I think
I
this
love
actually
it.
works.
Then it's
I think it
beautiful.
actually works, and I think you have it in sapphires as well. Here, yeah, I think you have a sapphire version here, um, as well, and here we get into like you know, we're getting into the Celestials. I believe that Zane might have had one of these. Um, I know that there is a former fan of the channel, Mark, that does have one of these. Not Mark Goldberg, another Mark. I think Jen knows him and a few other people know him, but has a Celestial Patek Philippe. I don't know too much about this watch. It's not really my cup of tea. I haven't really dived into it. Um, but yeah, I mean, you can get everything that even looks pretty simple here. Where you look at this one, but it's a minute repeater, right? It looks very simple in terms of its design, right? Breguet numerals, simple. I believe we would call these palm hands or Breguet hands. You got small center seconds in the middle, and this is an interesting piece here, Saad. You see, it says email. That's not electronic mail. That's enamel. So you have an enamel dial, on this minute repeater. It doesn't have a video, unfortunately. It would have been cool to see a video of it.
I
Um,
will remove the email from it if I get this watch.
you remove email. Yeah, it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, but yeah, I'm gonna round off that discussion on grand complications. Professor, I literally just brought you up, and I think you might have been listening, where I talked about opportunity costs, right? Like when you have 150 grand, like to me, if I have 150 grand to spend, I'm not buying a Nautilus, right? Like I'm gonna go and I'm gonna buy this. And maybe this isn't the watch you love, and maybe I'll show Fella's watch. I'll show his watch actually because
Then
we're on
one
this topic.
question from you: does this manual wind makes you anxious sometimes, or gives you anxiety because you are not knowing, how much reserve power you have on automatic movements? You just, you don't have these kind of issues. So
Yeah, look, I think that on a piece like this, right? Like I'm not necessarily going to care. To me, it's just going to be special when I wear it. I'm really caring about the experience at the time. I'm not caring so much about its usability or its utility. It was an interesting question from America asking, "Hey, could you wear the travel time pilot Calatrava on a daily basis?" And maybe that's a bit more utilitarian than if you're looking at a manual wind chronograph. But when I'm wearing a manual wind chronograph, I'm not timing sports. I'm not timing a race. I'm not the most I'm going to be doing is timing how much time I'm steeping my chai, and that's about it. I'm not spending I'm not actually caring so much about its utility. So the answer to me is not really. Um, I do have up on the screen here, guys. This is the watch that my friend Fella has. Fella, if you're watching, this one's for you. I don't know if you are watching or not. But this is not his exact watch, but this is the watch he owns. This is a 5270 platinum salmon dial. He believes that this is much nicer than the green dial, which I'm going to share here. I don't know, guys, if Professor side, if you guys have an opinion on which one you think is better, a better perpetual chronograph.
I mean, every watch you have shown us is special in their own perspective ways. So, but for me, grand complications is the way to go if I really have money for a Patek Philippe. However, I was one time going for 5196 It was in yellow gold. I was almost
Mhm.
buying it, but I didn't knew much about servicing and stuff. So uh, I
They
may
do actually,
share it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Saad, they do actually. I don't know if they still have it on the website, but they do have prices of servicing on here. I don't know if it's still available. Yeah, here we go. Service costs. So this would have given you all your information really on how much service costs are. So and they kind of go through the levels of a watch, right? So you start at your quartz, which is this kind of shit that Archie used to buy. 600, and this is in Swiss francs for a quartz service. A battery chain's 130 Swiss francs. A bit of a ripoff. Mechanical manual wound. So this would be the 5196, which would be called level two. Is a service is 900 Swiss francs. Then if you're getting into the self winding, like the 5227 Calatravas, probably the Nautilus 5711, that's about 1,000 Swiss francs. And then they kind of go up a level, right? So as I was discussing levels of complication. So
Yeah.
complication one, annual calendar, travel time, moon phases. That's considered a first level, 1,300 Swiss francs. Level complication two, advanced level. Now you have perpetual calendar, chronograph. So interesting enough, they don't consider the chronograph a grand complication, but the servicing is the same as a perpetual calendar, which is a grand complication. Annual calendar chronograph also not considered a grand complication, just a complication. And it goes up and up and up, right? Complication three, chronographic perpetual calendar. That's the one I just showed that fella owns, or a retrograde perpetual calendar is 2,300 Swiss francs. And then you can get into real, high end stuff like split second chronographs, minute repeaters. They're not going to show the price for that. So, that's really kind of what you get with Patek. I would
Yeah.
say in terms of like the pricing for it. Go ahead.
This is theoretical,
This
Tanzil,
is yeah. This is your
because
this is your standard
yes,
price. Yeah.
so you take your Patek and you're not leaving with anything less than 5,000 Swiss francs.
Yeah, if you're going
Um,
into like polishing, if there's other pieces, other parts that I think this is just
thi-
a quote for
this
the
is for
labor, the
coffee.
labor. Yeah,
Yeah,
this
this
is
is
just
for coffee purposes. You go in and have coffee and you pay a couple of thousand. I mean, even for the APs, if they open it, you're not leaving with anything less than 3,000 for an AP. So these are all theoretical prices because Patek, you need to be robbing many banks, um, you know,
and
to
it's interesting
service and to buy one.
because Professor they Saad asked me that question at the start of the stream. He was interested in the servicing costs for my Lamborghini, and I told him
No,
what the last cost was, which was 2,000 Canadian dollars. I didn't have to pay it because I have a service package with my car, but they do show the bill because the service shop charges Lamborghini, the bill because Lamborghini picks up the tab. Um, America 5935 says, "Whoa, they sell desk clocks where?" I don't know if it's actually on their website or not. I can try to see if I can find it. Collections. They have pocket watches that are here. It may be a vintage desk clock. I don't know if they actually still sell desk clocks. They do sell pocket watches, which we could see if you really cared to see it. But yeah, it would likely be probably something that is vintage. Now, the one good thing about this brand, and it's not just unique to Patek, I think AP can also do it, is Patek will service at a cost. Professors like he's gonna hold me honest to this at a cost, a very high cost. They will service any watch that they've ever made. They have the schematics to build the parts. If you have a really old vintage piece, it will definitely cost you a pretty penny. But unlike Rolex, that may have a 35-year rule, I believe it's a 35-year rule or something like that. And it may have even changed. Patek will honor, servicing and fixing any old watch that they've made. Now, it's not to say that Rolex won't do it. They do have a specific group inside the company that does handle pieces like that. It will definitely cost a pretty penny, but I don't really know the ins and outs of if Rolex may even have the designs to fix a really vintage piece. Like we're talking like not your traditional Submariner type piece, something that's really old. But yeah, you can do it, but Patek stands by the fact that they'll service any watch they've ever built, which is pretty cool.
yeah, but the same Vacheron will do the same Breguet will do the same. They're all on the same kind of service bandwidth. They have to, if you take an old piece, 50, 60, 100-year-old, it's for them a big task. And often enough, if you take a very old piece, they might even offer to buy it for their museum. Yeah, they have to do it. I mean, that's what they're known for, but you will have to pay quite a lot. I've never found anyone who takes a Patek in and pays. Always find a problem with the watch.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
The seal here, the gasket there, the O-ring over here, and these O-rings cost an arm and a leg. And the servicing is a revenue generator for
that's
all
exactly
of the watch.
It's a business, right? It's a business for them.
It is.
Oh, we got Beamerovich. We got a special guest here. Hello, Beamerovich. We're talking Patek Philippe.
Hey, man, how are you?
Good. We have a great punter in the chat, America5935, who's super chatted a lot of money today for us. He's loving the watch talk, Archie. We're doing a bit of watch talk before the main show.
Hey, that's great. America5935. He's a great guy. I thanked him yesterday. I went on the dungeon to thank him. And great guy. These are my new bedroom glasses. Chemist, from a chemist. They're readers. Otherwise, I can't see a thing.
Jin has been super chatting as well. He's in the chat. He says, Jesus. Archie, we're rounding off Patek talk. I've walked the punters through Patek from all the way at the bottom at Manual Wine, all the way to the top of Grand Complication. Saad had asked me about my journey of Patek. We want to know from you, if you could get a Patek, a dream Patek, like just so you can only have one Patek, right?
Sure.
And let's say unlimited money. Let's say reasonable money, achievable money for you. What would that be? What would that be?
How about a 5905?
5905. It's a great choice.
And they also have, what's the 520? What's that? That they got the annual calendar version of that.
Yeah, so the 5905 is annual calendar, chronograph, flyback chronograph. Saad was, I'm going to share it.
I think it's a 5205.
5205 is the standard annual calendar.
That's the one.
Here's the 5205. Here's your 5905 here on the screen. Flyback chronograph, annual calendar, beautiful piece. This one's on a bracelet. And then the 5205, which is what I went through in the annual calendar earlier, was the popular annual calendar. I'm a fan of the 5396. Archie, you're missing all the Patek talk. When you're going to log on, we're going to talk drama. We're not going to talk Patek. You're missing all the good stuff.
Okay.
Archie, do you like grand complications? And if so, which model would you prefer?
Look, who doesn't love grand complications? The problem is, Saad, the financial resources to pay for these things. They're expensive. You understand?
Yeah.
I love my favorite. I'll tell you honestly. My favorite is perpetual calendar chronograph. I think they're amazing. Even that watch that the 5327. The blue dial.
Yep.
The carry on from the 5.
Yeah,
the carry on. Yeah, from the 5140. Yeah, that's an amazing watch.
Archie, fella just messaged me. He says that he has a 5131P to go with his 5270P.
Beautiful watch. That's a great watch. That's an amazing watch. Those world times are amazing bang per buck at the moment. I don't know why they're so cheap. They really are amazing bang per buck. But
we have a question here, Archie. I don't know. I know you're in bed. I'm going to show this on the screen if you can even see the screen. The question is, it's directed to me, but I think you're the pontiff, so they want to hear from you. Do you prefer the 5226G? So this is the one with the syringe hands. I'm going to pull it up on the screen. 5226G. or the 5227. So this is the 5226 with the syringe hands. It's got a bit of a textured dial in black. I like this a lot better than the 5227.
I got to be honest. If I had a choice, I'd probably go for the 5226 now.
Yeah, I would agree. Archie, we got a super chat here from America 5395. Oh, we got another.
Archie, uncaffeinated. Grind the beans.
Is this the guy that is kicking me out to get a plastic on his live stream? Is this the guy, 10?
We're going to be talking about it in about an hour and a half.
Is this the time we face the music or later on?
I think in about an hour and a half, we're going to face the music. Bear may get the sack tonight. So the topic tonight, Archie, is Plastic has recommended that Bear get the sack and Savron be the right-hand man. So we're going to discuss it
Fuck
at 6.
me,
Archie.
that betrayal of the highest fucking level.
There's good news, Bear. I came to your defenses.
I don't think so. We'll discuss it in about an hour and a half, actually.
We're going to make a decision as a panel on whether Bear gets the sack. He gets the boot. He gets the pink slip.
You treat me like a chuda, not like a Rolex, like a chuda.
There, we got some super chats coming in for Archie. So we got this one from America 5935, $1.99 US. Archie uncaffeinated. Grind up the beans, Arch. Grind up the beans. We've got Mr. Zoso, $2. Best complications Patek for the buck, Pontiff. What's your best complication bang per buck? Bang per buck.
I reckon those world times are amazing. Bang per buck.
World time is the way to go. By the way, guys, what a fantastic watch talk. I'm not going to interrupt. See you all at the 6 o'clock Toronto, New York time. And love you all. Thank you, Tan. Thank you,
Love you, Bear. Love you, Bear.
And Archie,
Thank you, Bear.
You and I have things to discuss, man.
Bear's getting the sack today, Archie. We're going to fire Bear today on the stream at 6 o'clock. He's out.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, we got one more super chat here from Vintinier, Jin Tingler, 499 US. This is what Archie's blue velvet profile pic looks like.
Yeah, actually, I shoot it like this.
We got Thomas Burnett saying the 5320G is my favorite perpetual calendar. 5320G. So this syringe hands, I got a salmon dial one up here. Syringe hands perpetual, beautiful. You know, I think it's just whether, you know, I've still got you up on the screen. This is the 5320G, which Thomas Burnett says is his favorite perpetual calendar.
You know, the fascinating thing about this watch is, don't you?
What is the fascinating thing?
It's one of the few perpetual calendars that has a second hand.
Well, yeah, that is true. That is true.
Because it's using that, I think it uses the 324 base instead of the 240 micro rotor base, because the micro rotor doesn't support center seconds.
That's right. The rooted rotor 240.
Whereas this one, because it's got the big rotor, I think it's based on something else. They call it a different number, but I think that's the reasoning behind it.
No, it is a 324. It says caliber 324 SQ. So that's perpetual calendar, day, month. Yep, sweep seconds, moon phase. So it is a 324. You are right.
So it's one of the few perpetuals that actually has center seconds.
America's agreeing with us, Archie. 5226 seems like a winner chicken dinner versus a 5227.
There's nothing wrong with the 5227. It's just that if you had a choice, the 5226 is so modern. You know what I mean? It's so modern. It's steel. Shit, it'd be hard to pass that up. If you know Patek history, it'd be hard to pass it up. You know what I mean?
And he says seems fitting for a younger person. And the interesting thing is that Thierry Stern designed the 5227 to be for the young individual. So I agree with you. I think that this updated 5226.
You mean the 5226, don't you?
No, well, he designed the 5227, you know, with the sculpted, you know, the sculpted scallop lugs, the hunter case back. Like he wanted it to be a younger, because they asked him the 5119. They said, you know, he said, I looked at the 5119. I said that, you know, it doesn't seem like a young man would buy that watch. He's like, I wanted to redesign the Calatrava line for the young man in mind. And that's when he built the 5227, designed it that way. But like America is saying, the 5226 is so much more modern. The syringe hands may be a bit polarizing for some people. I love them. Some people may not. I don't know. But ooh, this is a good one from John Galt. 5396 sector dial or 5326.
Well, the 5396, that's a perpetual calendar.
5396 is the annual calendar with sector dial. I'll show
Sorry,
you.
you're right.
I'll show you the sector dial.
I was thinking 5496, 5496.
Yeah, let's show the 5396 sector dial here on the screen.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of this watch. I'm probably going to go with the other one. So this is a 5396G sector dial. To me, you know, I can't ever really fall. Archie, do you like sector dials? I don't know. I don't think I can ever fall in love with a sector dial.
Look. Some people love sector dials. I never liked them. I don't understand what's wrong. I don't mind them on JLCs, but on Patek, I always prefer the non-sector. Sorry.
Okay, so this is the competition, Archie. The 5326. Look at this, like just annual calendar travel time, just fucking stunner right here. Fucking stunner.
Oh, jeez.
Like John Galt, this isn't even a competition.
5326.
Like I think Archie may get some buyer's remorse on this bluesy because we're talking Patek today, not on his show. We're talking about it on my show, not on his show. His show is going to be firing Bear and making Savron the new right hand man. But yeah, Bear says sector dials are for JLC and Longines, not Patek. Because Archie, even the 5296 that you had, I'm going to show the 5296 that you had.
Yeah, you can get that as a sector as well.
Exactly. So here's the sector dial.
You know they're worth a bit more as sector. I think they're a bit more design.
I don't know, man. Like here's a sector dial. It's okay. You know, it's okay. This is, to me, when I talked to you like 4 years ago on the phone, I tried one on. I said the 38 millimeter is the perfect size.
Actually, you know what? That is the perfect. I reckon that is. Out of all the watches, I had all the Pateks. I think the 6006 I loved, but probably the one I sensibly loved was the 5296. I should never have got rid of that.
I think that,
mind you, the burglars would have taken it anyhow, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but like because you collected two 5127s, you had the 5196. Like honestly, if you just kept the 5296, you would have had the best
I had a
of all
problem.
worlds.
I had to sell one of the 5127s, right?
Yeah.
So I had to sell one of my white gold automatic Calatravas. I had a choice of a 5296 or the 5127, and I thought, you know what? I prefer the 512. I should have got rid of.
No, you should have kept the 5296. I'll tell you, is the perfect Calatrava. If anyone asks me, what is the perfect Calatrava?
I should have kept that. I got rid of the wrong one. I got rid of the 5296. The guy would have happily taken a 5127 instead.
So Chris says best entry level Patek is a manual wine Calatrava, particularly.
Hey guys, I better get a shower. I better get out of here. I gotta have a shower. Okay.
All right, we'll see you in an hour and a half.
No worries.
Take care.
See you. You know, so Chris says best entry level Patek is a manual wine Calatrava, particularly if you want to enjoy the brand organically and grow your collection over time and enjoy everything they make. So yeah, absolutely. You know, great manual wine, 5196. They have the 6119 right now is the current collection that's available. 5270p is great in person. Yeah, our friend Fella has one, salmon dial. Our friend George Varghese has one in the green dial. I'm a fan of the green dial. I know Fella's going to hate me for saying that. But yeah. All right, we got Professor, we got Saad. Last 20 minutes. Sorry, go ahead.
Can you show us the 5131p that Fella is?
Did he send it? Did he send it here? Like, let me see, because he has me on WhatsApp too. Did you put it in the chat at all? No, he didn't. I can pull up a 5131p, no problem. I wasn't sure if he wanted his one to be shown, 5131p. So here we go. This is 5131p on a bracelet, cloisonné dial. Let me find a good picture here. Cloisonné dial on a bracelet. Now look, bracelet Pateks are a little polarizing too. Oh shit, I'm not sharing the screen. Share this tab. Sorry guys, bouncing back and forth through tabs. I don't know if he has the one on the bracelet, to be honest with you. It said 5131p. I don't know if he's sending me a message here. Just pull it up. Stella, I know you're sending me a message on WhatsApp. Just let me know if you have the one on the bracelet. But yeah, look, bracelet Pateks are a bit polarizing. Some people don't love them. Obviously, we'll focus on the dial here. What the fuck am I doing here? Cloisonné dial. You can see here, you know, beautiful, beautiful world time. Professor Saad, what do you guys think of this one?
Yeah, but Jamie has the newer version, right? The one with a different font.
I don't know. Yeah, I think he may. I haven't really seen Jamie's watch, so I'm not sure exactly which one he has. I know his has a cloisonné dial. I don't still know which version it is. And fella did confirm that his is on the bracelet, so it is this watch.
His is 5231.
5231. Let's look that up here. 5231. That is the one that's on the website. So we'll actually show it in comparison to the 5130 perpetual. So if you look at the hands, the 5230 has the newer style hands. This one, the 5231, has the hands from the 5130, which is the older version of the one on the right. Between the two, Saad and Professor, which one do you guys like better?
Calatrava.
Cloisonné?
Yeah.
Professor?
Yeah, the same.
Cloisonné.
But they're both very nice, and I agree that the world timer is the thing to go for. Unless you have what 140, 150 for the 5270, right?
Yeah.
How much is it going, Tanzil?
Yeah, they're over 100. They're slightly over 100.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, they're nice, but it's everybody should have a Patek, one Patek. But
look, Mr. Zoso asked this question in the main channel like a few days ago. He was looking at a 5130, I think, platinum watch, and you know, a lot of people were giving him a lot of advice. Oh, get a Rolex. Oh, get a Rolex. You know, this and that. And then I stayed quiet. And at the end of it, they asked me my opinion. I said, get the fucking Patek. Like, you know, this is a great piece. I love the 5130p. You know, so it's also like, you know, hopefully the show today is giving you a bit of inspiration to maybe pull the trigger, because I think that, and I think it was maybe missing like the papers. And I'm like, man, you can get archive papers. Like, don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. You know, so don't worry about that. I did want to talk about in the last kind of 20 minutes, some Rolex. The topic was actually market prices, and we got the professor here and we got Saad. I wanted to show some market prices of some Rolexes, and kind of get your take of like, because we always see like, hey, how are certain pieces doing? You know, the market's crashing, this and that. I'm just going to use watch charts to make it simple. And we're going to show Canadian dollars. It's not going to show British pounds or American dollars. But we're going to kind of look at a couple of hype pieces out there and kind of see what they look like over time. So this timeline, Professor, is from August 2022 to current January 2022, where it was trading at the high in August at, and this is Canadian dollars, 45,000 Canadian dollars, and now they've come down. And Watch Charts uses actual listings. So if you go and you can click into like, you know, where are the listings and stuff like that here. So it kind of makes its graph off of listings that exist out there.
Mm-hmm. But let me ask you, are these sold prices or sold
It's not.
prices?
It's not. We'll never probably have the sold price. So we're just going to go with listed price. And
so this
and
is Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
This is Mickey Mouse stuff.
We're doing a bit of fun here. We're kind of, I mean, it's not the most scientific.
No, I'm just telling you now. If you
But the most important thing here is the graph is going down.
Yeah, like look, the asking prices have been going down, and I think that's important, right?
Yeah, but everything is going down.
Well, what we're going to see is we're going to look at a couple of different pieces and compare them.
Okay,
right? So
go ahead.
We see kind of you know, it's going down from about 45,000 down to, you know, about 39,000, so down about 10%. It shows the volatility at 10.7% in this time period on the Daytona. We're going to let's go to the next hype one. Let's go to Patek Philippe. 5711 Nautilus steel. I think this is one that everyone's familiar with. Let's see kind of where it's at. Let's look at its volatility, down 20% volatility. And again, right, we've got high prices here, you know, at 180, and then we're going down to like, you know, 160 right now. So you're seeing, and in the graph and asking prices, you see it go down, and then you see it creep up, and you see it go down, and you see it creep up, right? You see it go down, and you see it creep up, right? Like it's a bit different than the graph that you see with the Daytona, which is pretty steep going down. Supporting. It did go up a bit, right? This was kind of, and look at the timeline where it did go up, tried to creep back up a bit. This was kind of in Q4 before Christmas, and then when Christmas hits, you know, dips, and it's down a bit since Christmas, relatively flat-ish since Christmas, but over that period of time where you saw this dip and it comes back up, it's interesting to see. Let's look at the Aquanaut, Patek Philippe Aquanaut.
Yeah.
See how it's fared.
Okay.
See the volatility in Aquanaut.
Right.
Yeah, I think Patek Philippe 5167. Yeah, stainless. Volatility of 13.6%. That's kind of relatively
Okay,
flat.
Patek is stronger brand than Rolex here.
Yeah, this is a little bit flat, right? Like this is not as bad, I would say. Now the Aquanaut may not have had the astronomical, you know, overinflation of price. I think that the professor doesn't like, you know, professor, just go to watchcharts.com if you want to just do it on the side. So it's not, so you're not like, I don't know how much bigger I can make it, but
yeah, no, it's okay.
yeah.
It's okay. I have an opinion about all these Mickey Mouse.
Why don't I stop and you can give us the Mickey Mouse opinion? Go for it.
Yeah. So, you know, first of all, who's the owner of this watch charts?
I don't
Who's
know.
the proprietor? Okay.
I don't know.
So, you know, let me make the argument that in stocks or in equity markets, you have a fairly, you know, level amount of information, right? Buyer, seller, data points, and all of that, liquidity ratio, Sharpe ratio, and so forth. I don't want to lose half of the audience. Here, what is the data point? Where is it coming from? As I said, is it based on sales or is it based on?
It's based on. So this is based on ask, right? Because if you go
ask,
into
okay, if it's on ask, you and I can. If we corner the market, we can ask anything. And of course, naturally, you have Rolex going down steeper because you have fewer points of liquidity with Patek. There are fewer watches out there, and it's easier to control. This is one level of argument, right?
Absolutely.
So it is a very intransparent market. So, yes, I mean,
and I think you're the best guy to have on this show just to talk about, you know, because I think that's a very important point. Is the number, the supply, like you said, is very limited. And I'll use my personal example. Like I'm looking for a 5212 weekly calendar, and I'm finding it extremely difficult to find it in Canada. There's just no supply in Canada to get it, and you know I'm willing to, you know, I'm going into like, you know, hey, I'm going to ask to see if I can get someone to sell it, but there's just none around, right? And even if you look in the U.S., if I just go to a simple, you know, website and I go to Watch Recon or I go to Chrono, there's not a ton of them out there, you know. But like you said, if you're looking up a Daytona, right, I could find 10 dealers that have a Daytona ready to sell to me, right? So
yeah, and you know, let me just very quickly, price is determined by many factors. Price signaling is determined by many factors. And people, when they buy stuff, especially, let's go with watches, the value of a product is not at the point of buying, but at the point of selling. The value of the watch is when you sell it, not when you buy it. A lot of people make the mistake that, oh, I bought the watch for 40,000. It's worth 40,000. It's not worth 40,000. It's worth what the market is paying at the time you're selling it or when you want to sell it. So we have perceptions of price that gets distorted. And all of this is based on there is no market for watches. I mean, there is and there isn't. One can argue that, first of all, you know, Saad said, is this an asset? Yes, it is an asset, but it's not treated as equities. Equities is a different category of assets. This is still at a formative stage, and anybody can come up with a price, right? You go to Chrono 24, and of course there is a lot of groupthink and price signaling that goes on. One seller says 45, the other says 44,500. And when you call them, they say we don't have the watch, right? So of course there is no SEC to regulate watches. So of course the big issue here when people say it's an asset class, yes, it's an asset class, but it is not regulated, right? Like crypto, it's not regulated. That's why you have all these Mickey Mouse people, Bamford, Mumford, Sam Fried, and all these idiots, swindlers who are running with people's money. Whereas capital markets are regulated, of course, because we have 150 years of, lack of regulation, and in the 1920s and 30s, again, I don't want to turn this into a professorial stupid lecture, but watches are not regulated. So what's going on there is still to be said and account for. So anyway, yeah, it should go down because stock markets have been tanking, and if watches go up at a time when
There's a good
everything else is
question here
tanking.
by Professor. We may go just a little bit down the rabbit hole of economics. Bear Clooney Watches asks, how is that different from asking different prices for houses?
Well, the housing market is very different, right? Because you do have mortgages, you do have other factors determining the price, and watches is an asset, but it is not, the argument is, transparent. Whereas housing is transparent, it is regulated. You do know based on mortgages if prices are going up, you know the yield curve, and you know demand and supply. Likewise, in watches, you have demand and supply, but the price point is not determined by a more regulated structure. Here, it's completely unregulated. And when you go to the independents and specialty brands, that's a very different ball game. Anything goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I have here the meteorite Pepsi that's up on the screen here. So showing a volatility of 18.2%. Started in July at about 70,000. Now it's creeped back up close to that at about $67,000. But it definitely went through an appreciation curve. And again, Saad, if you saw the time of the Daytona, where the Daytona was steadily decreasing from August until now, the meteorite Pepsi actually in the same time frame from an ask perspective, and we're playing a bit of a game here, professors. Let's just go with that the asks are real, that the asks appreciated in value, took a sharp decline in Q4, continued their sharp decline through Christmas, and then post Christmas have been on their ascent back up. So very interesting to see this piece, which is definitely talked about a lot. In the streams to see kind of where it is. Berkeley Watches, you just said the watches are not assets, but you immediately changed your mind. Thank you. All right, we're not going to get it. We don't have a lot of time to debate. I used up a lot of the time on the Patek talk, so I'll just take that as a comment. I do want to show just a few more watches here before we wrap, because I'm going to wrap in about 7 minutes. So we went through the Meteorite Pepsi, we went through the Daytona, the Aquanaut, the Nautilus. Let's go through the Cermet. That's the 126610 LV, which is the Cermet. Yeah, the Cermet's faring, Saad. Hopefully you're still with us.
Yeah.
All right, so we got an interesting similar kind of trend. Went down, then you see a rise back up in Q4, and then obviously a steady decline all the way down, and hasn't really recovered the way the Meteorite Pepsi has. I don't think that that's surprising. I think a lot of people are dumping their Cermets. They're becoming like the professor said, the supply is very high out there in the market. Probably in that original decline, there was some fear selling and people just offloading, and then obviously people buying at a cheap price thinking the market had bottomed, and then again just on a steep decline as well on the Cermet. From the Cermet,
And
we're gonna go.
let's see some day dates.
Can you give me a reference?
228238.
23238. Yeah. Rolex day date 40. not bad. Start point was around 59,000 in July, went on a decline. Q4 went up, had a bit of volatility around Christmas, sharp decline, and then back up. But it's relatively flat. It's relatively flat
Professor,
compared to.
if you compare the steel watches to the gold watches, then you will instantly understand that the steel prices, the hype has gone down, the bubble has somewhat burst on the steel garbages, and the gold has retained or the precious metal has retained its value.
We got a super chat here from Sean Snowden, £8.99. Thank you, Sean. Another great show, fellas. Thanks. Thank you so much. We do have a question for you here from Forbin Colossus for you, Professor. Can watch values be judged by eBay completed listings? We know the auction people lie and game their reporting systems, meaning like Philips and other auctions. But do you think that eBay listings from the completed listings could be a good choice as a judge for actual price paid?
Yes, you can, but you need to see the amount of trades, and we you just don't know who regulates that. I mean, watches is a completely unregulated business. Let me say something so I'm not misunderstood. It is an asset, right? But it cannot be treated like other assets that are more regulated. You cannot treat a watch the same as a house, right? If you do, then your economics is completely misguided, because homes are far deeper. The depth and the dearth of the housing market is very different than luxury watches.
Professor, I don't know about watches, but in my country, every week the prices of lands are regulated, they are revised, and they are controlled.
Well, of course, because if the price of if housing gets destroyed, it's far more fundamental to an economy than watches. I mean, do you want watches or do you want homes? Having said that, it's like paintings and wine, right? I'm not disputing that. What is interesting in the case of watches is that watches started coming down around April of 2022, not before, which allowed for a certain amount of, I cannot call it, either it was gamed or those who controlled watches and had watches did not want to sell watches because equities were falling prior to April of 2022. But all of a sudden, watches was considered to be cushioned, and watches were not cushioned and will not be cushioned from an asset bubble. And watches was a bubble, undeniably. If anybody says that the watch market was not a bubble, then they are idiots.
And this is coming from a Rolex owner. This is coming from a Rolex owner, guys. Professor's not a Breguet obscure owner. He likes his Rolexes, so we know the.
No, I do like my Rolex. Yes, undeniably. I believe in Rolex, and I think for me, it is value for money. But again, I could equally be said by somebody else that this is an idiotic view.
No, it's not an idiotic view. There's no idiotic view.
Everybody has an opinion.
Well,
and yes, I would love to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, look, like I think that if Professor had logged on earlier, we would have gone through a full economics. And look, I think that this is a great topic for us to actually do maybe on the next show. Is hopefully, Professor, I can get it on a better time for you where we can go into some deep dive economics of the watch market, maybe give a premise of the watch market itself in more depth, because we just don't have a ton of time. So Archie's going to start in an hour. So I just wanted to, I want to give a bit of time between the two shows. Okay. I will read this last super chat from America 5935, $10 US. Thank you again, America. Great supporter today of the show, and great friend of the channel. Great show. Appreciate the topics and expertise being shared. Thank you. Guys, I'm going to wrap here. I know that I've been going for about an hour and a half, and I do want to give Archie an hour in between. Professor Saad, thank you so much for joining the show. Hopefully on the next one, we'll be. Yeah, no, you guys are always welcome. We want to make sure that maybe on the next show, we take a deeper dive into the economics of the watch market. I think it's a topic that, with a true individual who knows economics, I think will make a bit more value than a bunch of us armchair observers that may not necessarily know economics that deeply, because you do bring up a ton of valid points in terms of the regulation of the market, the supply of the market, the control of the market. Definitely good perspective in terms of talking about the market pre-Great Depression, even, right, in terms of a wild, wild west, potentially, as the stock market used to be. So, guys, we'll be back here in an hour. Archie's going to be showered and ready to go. We're going to be talking about Bear getting the SPAC, and potentially replacing Bear with Savron. We will want the punter's opinion if Bear should get the sack, if Archie should get rid of him. Everything's up for grabs right now. If you want to be the right-hand man of Archie, you can definitely super chat in on why you should be the right-hand man. We'll see you guys in an hour. Thank you again, Saad, Professor, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.